Today I'm going to build my A-League fantasy team as we're only a few weeks out from the competition starting. Right, whilst editing this video, I realized this donut hasn't put the fantasy code in, so I'll put it up on screen now. Join it or else. So I've kind of gone through and had a look at which players I want for my team, and starting off in goal, I'm going to go for two cheap options, but they've both played a fair bit during the Oz Cup and preseason. Yeah, with Alex Paulson from Wellington. And we're also going to go with Tom Heward-Bell. Alex Paulson obviously played the 2 games for Wellington and looked to be the established number 1, and Jack Duncan only pretty much coming in to help develop his career. Tom Heward-Bell looks likely to take over from Jamie Young now that he's moved on to Melbourne City, and two very cheap options that will free up more money for our attackers and midfielders. Now, originally I wanted to put Aiden Simmons as my first player in defence, but he seemed to be in and out of the team a lot during the Oz Cup. So I'm going to go with Jack Clisby, steady as you like, should get plenty of assists going forward, and he obviously scored that wonder goal against Brisbane when they got knocked out in the quarter-final. I want a Brisbane defender, but I don't want one that'll break the bank. I'm gonna go Jack Hingett. I know Brisbane have a fairly relaxed start to the start of the season. Obviously they have Sydney, but I don't think other than Sydney they have anyone drastic for a while, and he should pick up a fair few points against Wellington and MacArthur. Been a bit stuck on whether to go with 3 high value defenders, because I'm going to go with a 3-4-3 during the weeks. I think that's the best chance of guaranteeing me points. I'm going to go with Scott Wooten. He played against Melbourne City when they lost in the quarterfinal. Wellington might not pick up that many points, but Scott Wooten will play majority of their games. Move on to the midfield now, and we'll leave the bench for later, but Jay O'Shea has to be the first name in that midfield. Unbelievable last season, and now with an even better Brisbane side this year, he will pick up a high amount of points, providing he assists. He's still on penalties. This should be a good season for Jay O'Shea. He's a hefty price tag, but I think with that hefty price tags comes the points. One of my other high value midfielders is going to be Anthony Caceres. Obviously looks to be playing that more number 10 role for Sydney. Absolutely killed it when they played in the Oz Cup this year. Hopefully he can carry that form into the league. He's a bit hefty at 323, but he should pick up a fair few assists and maybe even a few goals during the season. Another player that I found is relatively cheap and he shouldn't start most games, but he'll come off the bench and could pick up a fair few points, is Lapane. 155, I think that's an absolute steal. Yes, he won't start every game and he might not contribute every game, but I think he's going to be a good, whether he moves to my bench or he starts, we'll wait and see close to the season, but I think he will be the main, almost attacking option for Melbourne City to go to off the bench now that they don't have Naboot or Lecky for a little while. I think my last midfielder I'm going to go with is Josh Nisbet. I don't think Mariners have an awfully hard start to the season. He's not going to be the most high scoring midfielder, but he will pretty much guarantee me points every week. Whether it's 5 or 3 remains to be seen. Moving on to the attackers, I think this is going to be a must for everyone's fantasies this year. Marcus Antonsen, 348,000, scoring goals for fun in the Oz Cup. Even though the Wanderers went out in the quarterfinal, he scored 3 goals in 2 games, which is ridiculous. And Antonsen only being 12% owned is very shocking to me. He will score goals. If he won't score goals, he'll get the assist. Him and Borello have been playing off each other well during the Oz Cup, and I think this will continue. If you don't have Antonsen, you pretty much have to have Borello, in my opinion. Now for my next player, you gotta go with the man that's in form, Thomas Waddingham. 4 goals in the Oz Cup so far. He's absolutely killing it as the main man for Brisbane, and they look to be on the rise, Brisbane. If Waddingham isn't scoring the goals, it's Jay O'Shea, and if it's not Jay O'Shea or Waddingham, it's going to be one of the wide players. But for 150,000, Waddingham is an absolute steal. Even if he just makes the bench, That's a very cheap bench player who you can bring in most weeks and he will get you points. Now for my final attacker, I've been going back and forth all week trying to figure out who I want. Do I want Maclaren? Do I want Lolly? Or do I even want Alu Qual? Alu Qual's a cheaper option, but he won't get the points that Lolly and Maclaren will get you. Maclaren will guarantee you points galore. Is Melbourne City going to be the same side as the last few years? I don't think so, especially with the boot being out long term. No Tilio, no Boss, no O'Neill, no Jamison. I don't know if Maclaren is the right choice. He will score goals, there's no doubt about that. Greatest A-League player in history. But I'm going to go with Joe Lolly. I think Sydney will have one of their better seasons this year. They're coming off a great Oz Cup run. I think he will just get ahead of Maclaren. I wouldn't be surprised if Lolly wins the Golden Boot this year. And with picking Lolly instead of Maclaren, we still have 700,000 to spend on bench players, which will build us a great bench, which we won't need to transfer out too much. So we can splurge a little bit more on our bench, where if we had Maclaren, we would have to pretty much get 150 players. And for that reason, I'm going with Carl Jenkinson as my first bench player. And for my other defensive option, I'm going to go Stefan Negro. He will play for Melbourne Victory. Whether they get the points will remain to be seen. But now we have 300,000 for our final bench player. And as a midfielder, I'm going to go with a more attacking option. And for that last bench spot, I'm going to go with Oli Bozanic. He's going to be that main attacking outlet for Perth, I believe. He will be able to drive the ball a bit more forward, unlike how he was last year with Western Sydney being a bit more restricted. Perth have a pretty good start to the season, actually. They have Jets, Phoenix, and Mariners, which really, if they don't pick up maybe 3 or 4 points from those 3 games, it'll be a bit of a disappointment for Perth. Obviously, they'll struggle to make finals. Whether they make finals or not, we'll leave that for the predictions video. But I'm going to leave Oli Bozanic. He could even move over to the starting side for Lapane or Nisbet. But I think he is a good option now that we don't have Maclaren up top. That freed up our budget a hell of a lot. So we'll save the team there. And we will pick, we're going to go Joe Lolly as captain. Yeah, we'll go Joe Lolly as captain. Jay O'Shea. We'll start with Paulson to start the first week, I believe. Clisby, Hingett, Wooten, Caceres, Nisbet, Lapane, Antonson, Lolly, Waddingham. So this is going to be my team to start off the A-League Fantasy this season. Who's your best pick for the Fantasy? Who's your most underrated pick? And who do you think is going to get the most points this season? I will see you soon.